Hey, it's Rogue Review, and this is what happens if you stack items 9 times in Skul Slayer. First off, we got Abandoned Wedding Ring, increases skill cooldown speed by 25%, and your normal attacks have a 2% chance to freeze. Also gives you Heirloom and Absolute Zero. So essentially, this is just an 18% chance to freeze and a 225 skill cooldown speed. You can clearly see the 18% chance to freeze. Is it really worth that stacking? Is it worth stacking that much? Not really. Not really that powerful. Next we have the standard issue Carlian armor. Non-distinct standard issue Carlian armor, worn by the Carlian army. This one decreases incoming damage by 15%. That's a 135% damage decrease, but obviously that's not how it's gonna work, so the damage taken is literally 0.14 now, which is pretty insane. It also gives you spoils and fortress. This is what it looks like. Yeah, it barely took any damage at all. Standard issue Carlian bow. Bows are not as popular as they used to be since the introduction of crossbows. This increases crit rate by 8%, 74% crit rate increase with strike and spoils. So yeah, now you're up to 82 crit damage, and with crit rate and 1.7 crit damage. So basically just majority of the time you're gonna hit critical hits, which is fine, I guess. Do I recommend stacking? I mean, it's better than some of them. It's not that good, but it's not horrible. Now we've got the basic Carlian staff. Standard issue staff given to the students of the Carlian Magic Academy. It increases magic attack by 30%, so 270% damage increase, along with wisdom and spoils, and yeah, up to 516 right now. I'd say it's pretty worth stacking. Does decent damage. And yeah, for a common item, pretty good. Okay, now we have the standard issue Carlian sword. Standard issue Carlian sword, its durability is questionable, but it still holds a sharp edge if well maintained. So this thing is basically the same thing as the staff, but instead of magical, it's physical. So now you have tons of physical damage. Is it worth stacking? Yeah, definitely. In the early game, yeah, it's super good, super useful. Now we have the broken dagger. Nobody knows why, but it looks more threatening when broken. Increases attack speed by 15%, and normal attacks have 2% chance to inflict wound. So this is a 225%. This is a 135% damage increase and a 18% chance to inflict wound. And obviously gives excessive bleeding and hidden blade. I'd say this one is very, very good. It's a very good common item to stack because of how OP bleed is, and also how OP hidden dagger also is. Stacking these two is really broken. Shadow Spirit Death, a small shadow spirit who offered an adventure to the foolish elementalist. Shadow Spirit Death follows you and uses shadow magic to deal magic damage to random enemies every 7 seconds. If Light Spirit Lao is in possession, this item turns into Dark Spirit Shade. Now obviously it gives Brawl and Fairy Tale. This is no question the most powerful common item to stack, no matter what, because it just straight up gives you Obrion, which is phenomenal and extremely busted. So yeah, this is the one. It's the one to get. Discolored Dark Quartz Shard. It feels like you've met a madman who's focused all of his rage for revenge. This increases HP by 225, so it's a max of 225. Gives you Antique and Revenge, nothing really special. Next we have the Hate Stone, a stone the Orc Shaman's imbued with black magic to enhance combativeness. Increases magic attack by 55% for 4 seconds when hit. It's a 495% increase. When hit obviously also gives you Artifact and Revenge. Boom. Now I'm up to 700 damage. Is this good? Not really, because you have to actually get hit to activate it, so I don't really like this item too much, but it's fine, I guess. Manatech Cogwheel, a hot cogwheel that continues to spin even after its duty. Increases magic attack by 20%. Your normal attacks have a 2% chance to inflict burn, so 100%, 180% magic attack increase, and a 18% to do burn damage. And I get Manatech and Arson, so is this strong? Being able to inflict burn like that, I guess it is pretty strong. Coupled with the inscription, the burn inscription, I guess it does become quite strong. Is it worth stacking? I mean, it does good damage. The only issue is you gotta wait for so it's just not very useful. I wouldn't recommend stacking this. This, on the other hand, early on is super good. Kendo stick, a training sword from the east that allows for swift strikes to the head. Increase attack speed by 20%, 180% attack speed, and arms and rapidity, so it's pretty dang broken. So is this really good? It is genuinely pretty good. Especially for the early game, it's really good. Now this one is the second best common item to stack. Carlian Insignia. Just like everywhere else, the Carlian army provides better equipment to higher ranking members. Generate 30 gold per Carlian item you have upon changing maps. I have 9, so this is gonna give me, this alone will give me 270. That multiplied by 9 is a big number, so let's see how much it gives exact. 3,486, and accumulating that every single room is pretty busted. Like, genuinely busted. That's OP. Up next we have the Old Cross. Please provoke me no more, brother. Increase crit rate by 5%, 45% crit rate, awesome. And normal attacks have a 2% chance to inflict stun, 18% chance to inflict stun. Okay, this is not bad actually, this is pretty good. And stunning, being able to critical hit half the time and being able to stun is pretty good in my opinion. One of the better ones to stack. Prayer of Grace, of course I did. I do it every day. Yes, I put my heart into it. Increase skill cooldown speed by 40%. That's a 360% cooldown speed, along with the mana cycle. So that's a 4,410% skill cooldown. That's a lot added on to myself, so yeah, this is pretty quick. And this Skul's abilities are 15 and 12 seconds long, so this is pretty quick for this guy. And for you, yeah, you can just spam this. It's pretty dang broken. Next up we have the Rejuvenating Root, a must-have for rookie adventurers. I don't agree, but okay. Taking damage restores 1 HP, and you get Revenge and Mutant. Restore 9 HP when you take damage, so let's see what happens. He hit me. I'm back up full health because he only did 8 damage. So depending on the amount of damage these guys do, I will get my health back. But it's just not very worth it, in my opinion. It's just bad. And if you reach a certain point, you don't heal from it, you don't heal back up. So it's just bad. It's really bad. I wouldn't recommend this at all. Ring of Wind, popular among travelers, even if it didn't have any special powers like Sealing Spirits. Increase attack speed by 15% and move speed by 15%. Pretty good. Gives heirloom and soar. So I mean, it's okay. It's really not that special. Toxic Pendant. Who put poison? Increase physical attack by 20%. Your normal attacks have 2% chance to inflict poison, so 100% physical damage and 180% physical damage and 18% chance to inflict poison. Is this good? I think so. I mean, poison is actually really versatile, and poison might be one of the better status effects in the game, so I think, yeah, it's very viable. Finally, we have the Unknown Seed. A large seed radiating with unknown powers. Each time 10 HP is recovered, physical attack and magic attack increases by 1%. When HP recovered reaches 300, this item turns into World Tree Seed. And you get Heritage and Mana Cycle. This is one of the better ones because it turns into something better and it's something actually useful, so I do recommend this. First we have 11th Finger of Lightning. No one knows if this lightning is a real person or if the finger is just a figure of speech. A lightning bolt strikes a random enemy every 8 seconds, dealing magic damage. It also gives you artifact and duel. This is what it looks like on enemies. Just every so often strikes down lightning. Is this worth it? I don't think so. I don't think it's worth it at all. It actually seems very weak, and the fact that you have to wait 8 seconds for it, not viable. I don't recommend stacking. Missile Virus. Warning, high chance to activate when dealing deadly damage. Damaging 50% of enemies' max HP, summons tendrils that deal magic damage to nearby enemies, 5% for adventurers or bosses. Cooldown of 1 second, gives you artifact and execute. This is very hard to trigger most of the time, but when you do trigger it does tons of damage, but regardless it's just not very viable, because doing that much damage to a boss with barely any magic stack at all. It's just not very easy, so it's just not very useful. Acceleration sword, I can do this all day. Swing acceleration sword every 14 seconds and deal physical damage. Increasing your attack speed lets you swing the sword more frequently. Gives you arms and rapidity. Now this one is a little more viable, because this one actually gives you good stats. It gives you attack and rapidity, and the amount of damage this does is actually pretty good. So I recommend it. I wouldn't say always take it because it's just not that good, but it's fine. After image. Hey, are the after images supposed to be like that? Normal attacks launch projectiles that deal magic damage. Gives you wisdom and rapidity. With something that attacks very fast, this is just force of nature. It's just incredible. It's a menace. I love this item, and stacking it is an amazing idea. Just the amount of damage it does, I highly recommend stacking. Ancestral bracelet, a bracelet imbued with the strength of the ancestors. It makes your arm tingle. Increases quintessence cooldown speed by 45% and increases attack speed by 30%. So 405% cooldown speed and a 270% attack speed. Also gives you heritage and rapidity. The attack speed it's good. It's not the best attack speed, not the worst. It's good. As for the quintessence cooldown, it's actually pretty quick. This thing is 82 seconds, and this is way less than 82 seconds. This was like, I don't know, a few seconds, so I'd say it's good, but I wouldn't say it's the best thing. It does give 2 buffs that are pretty good, but there's better ones out there. Now we have Ancient Incense Burner. An incense burner used to communicate with ancestral spirits within quintessence. Basically just a better version of the previous one. Increased quintessence cooldown speed by 65% and gives you max HP of 35 each, so it's a 585 quintessence cooldown speed and a 315 health increase. Gives you antique and heritage, so the cooldown of the quintessence is way faster, and I recommend this way more than the other ones. This is the Iron Shoes of Bitter Gold. If nothing else, these shoes aren't designed for catching cockroaches. Increases max attack by 40% while in the air, and normal attacks performed mid-air have a 5% chance to inflict freeze, so it's a 360% magic attack increase, and it's a 45% chance to inflict freeze. I also get absolute zero and soar, so I'd say this is actually really cool, really good actually. This is surprisingly very good. And dagger, as you can see, the dagger isn't for slicing, it's for stabbing. Increases crit rate by 15%, 135% crit increase, so it's a 100% chance. Increases attack speed by 25%, so that's 225% attack speed, and movement speed by 20%, so that's a 100% chance. So that's a 180% movement speed increase of speed skull specifically. It has Hidden Blade and Strike, so I'd say this is actually super good, because the amount of buffs you get from this are phenomenal. Being able to 100% critical strike and being so utterly fast, and being able to attack so quickly is just so good. I highly recommend it. Trainee Necklace. There's nothing overly complicated about meditating, just close your eyes and concentrate. So this increases concentration speed by 40%, so 360%. Concentration speed and magic attack by 35%, so 315%. Gives you antique and wisdom. Is it good? I think it's only good for things that have concentration. And for things that don't have concentration, it's completely useless, but I would say it's actually phenomenal for skulls like this. Tendons, pauldrons. Try not to distract me from my meditation. Increase concentration speed by 40% and physical attack by 35%. Gives you fortress and courage. This is basically the previous item but for physical attack, and it does clearly increase the concentration by quite a lot, because yeah, this went up from 0 to 68 in a matter of seconds and does quite a lot of damage. Beak of Raptor. A very sharp hooked beak. Whose beak could this be? Increase attack speed by 25% and crit rate by 5%. Swapping to a speed skull increases crit rate by 10% for 12 seconds. Gives you strike and heritage. This I feel pretty redundant. Although it gives you 225% attack speed, the crit rate is just basically redundant because it gives you up to 145 crit rate, which you don't need, and there's just items that do this way better, so I feel like it's not really that good. Dark Berserker's Gauntlets, and the next time we meet, they'll be stained black. only leaving behind a rumor that he fled the country. Wandering Merchant. Increases attack speed proportional to lost HP up to 60%. Increases attack speed by an additional 50% when your current HP is at 30% or below. Yeah, now I'm up to 1110 attack speed, and I'd say this is phenomenal attack speed. Attacking like absolutely crazy. Bone of Madness. Bones may be countless compressed bones. They say the array of these bones are such a sight to behold. Using a skill summons an area of bones that lasts for 10 seconds, cooldown 10 seconds, standing inside the zone, increases your physical and magic attack by 50%, gives you bone and brawl and up to 450% physical and magic attack when you stack it. And this is what it looks like, and indeed it boosted up pretty good. Is this for stacking? Not really. Bone of Time, a grotesque clock containing finely ground bone dust. Decreases swap cooldown by 0.5 every time you use a skill. So it decreases swap cooldown by 4.5 seconds each time you use a skill. Gives you bone and mana cycle, so that instantly refreshes your cooldown. So it's pretty good actually, not really the best, not that useful, but it's okay. Good mana engine, some kind of component that moves erratically while leaking fuel. Wind dashing creates a magic mass. The magic mass explodes after a certain time. Dealing magic damage gives you 495% skill cooldown speed and mad attack and chase. So the skill cooldown speed is incredible, basically instant. And the amount the mana attack does is actually very good, so it does tons of damage and gives you really good skill cooldown. I highly recommend this. Burning Scripture. Go ahead and read. Pass to the next person when you're done. When a burning enemy damages another enemy due to burn, there's a 15% chance for the hit enemy to receive burn. And it gives you arson and relic. So this is basically a 100% chance for this to happen. Yeah, it does seem to work very well. It's pretty good if you're going for a burn build. I would recommend if that's what cavalry decoration, an impressive cavalry decoration. It looks as if it's eager to charge forth. Wind dashing, thrust forward and deal physical damage. Heirloom and chase. So the amount of damage it does is not very good. It's kind of disappointing. But if you're going for a chase build, it's okay. Priestess Veil. A black cloth draped over the veil to block the voices of demons. Randomly cast a second buff every 20 seconds, increasing physical attack, magic attack by 60%, decreasing incoming damage by 40%, or increasing attack speed and movement speed by 60%. At the moment, the buff has given me 280% attack on both, 1.13 damage taken, which is the lowest I've ever seen it, 265 attack speed, 280% movement speed, 210% skill cooldown, and 140% quintessence cooldown. Also gives you relic and mana cycle, so I feel like this is actually one of the most balanced and most OP things to stack, so I highly recommend stack. Coward's Cape. I'm not running away. This is strategic retreat. Jumping within 0.1 seconds of after dashing increases movement speed by 300%, so this is going to increase movement speed by 2,700%, which is insane. Yeah, my movement speed is literally 2,800 right now. This is actually quite fun. I quite enjoy this silliness. Because honestly, that's just fun. You literally zoom across the screen in the matter of instances. Decayed Heart, a vile heart that discharges poison upon impact. Poison nearby enemies when hit, cooldown 1 second. Defeating a poisoned enemy spreads decay, poisoning other enemies. Okay, let's see how powerful this actually is. Hit me. Okay, that does seem to spread a lot of poison, but it doesn't actually seem to do this very much, because I have to actually take damage for it to work. And the amount of damage it does for the amount of damage I'm taking is just not worth it. I don't like this item. Nation. A helm worn by a nameless knight who was found dead in a destroyed palace, with his shield still held upwards. Decreases incoming damage by 30% when your remaining HP is 30% or less. So this essentially gives you decreases incoming damage by 270% when you're at 30% or less. Gives you Fortress and Revenge. 0.04 times damage taken. I'm taking 1 damage. That's actually insane. I actually highly recommend this. This is kinda broken. That's OP. Disposable Syringe. Despite the name, it seems to have been used at least 10 times. Critical hits inflict poison. Gives you misfortune and poisoning. So it seems to apply poison, but apply poison multiple times. Is it really that useful? Not really. It's just like a one-trick pony. Not very good. Execution Axe. A giant axe used by Carlian executioners increases physical attack by 50%, so 450 altogether, and increases max HP of power skulls by 30%, so 270 health altogether. It's pretty good, but if you're not using a power skull, obviously it's terrible, but it's actually really strong. Genuinely strong. I recommend it, it's pretty good. Champion Belt, the belt which belonged to a gladiator who stood against 17. This turned out to be true, along with the fact that he was barehanded. Increases physical attack by 12% for every enemy nearby, stacks up to 120. With 9 of them, that's 1080%. With near 5 or more enemies, release a shockwave that deals physical damage to nearby enemies. Gives you Brawler and Masterpiece. The most I could stack it with, just because getting that many enemies is really hard, but the shockwave does tons of damage as well. Genuinely huge amounts of damage. I recommend stacking this, especially if you're dealing with lots of enemies. Distorted Curved Sword. A lethal curved sword, impossible to predict when swung. Increases physical attack by 25% and crit rate by 10%. So 100% chance to crit and increases physical attack by 25%. Gives you hit blade and duel. Just simple, good. It's just good. There's just nothing more to say. It's simply just good. Fragments of Sunwagon. Fragments from a crashed chariot that has been wandering the empty skies. When dashing creates a trail of fire that deals magic damage and has a 8% chance to inflict burn. Now this obviously is no longer 8%. It is 72% chance to inflict burn. It gives you arson and chase. Pretty good damage. Not the best damage in the world, but it's something. Giant's Axe. Whoever you are, don't mess with the mammoths. Glowstone. A stone that boasts a very bright glow. It's no mere light. Gain a 10 HP barrier for 30 seconds every time 5 skills are used. This is actually quite good, because literally every single time you use 5 skills, it gives you a shield that's that big of a shield, so it actually would keep you alive for a long time. But the damage output is just bad, and you would die really quickly, so I don't recommend it. The gnome that once supported the subterranean dwarven hall is now forever trapped in his necklace. Each spirit follows you, uses rock magic to deal magic damage to nearby enemies every 12 seconds. Gives you Fairytale Fortress and gives you King Oberon. So obviously this is OP. There's no reason not to take this. Very OP to stack. Next we have Gold Incense Burners. Killing this thing is like killing a golden goose. Increase gold gain by 25% and max HP by 35%. Basically gives you a 225% gold gain, which is actually insane. Because gold is so important, that much is so crazy. And gives you max HP up to 315. It gives you antique and treasure, pretty good. Sword. You use the superfluous gold to forge the world's most magnificent sword. Every 100 gold spent increases physical attack by 1%, stacking up to 70%. So this is basically just a 630% damage increase. Gives you arms and treasure, very worth it. And it's just a really good item. This is the Golden Whip. Hurry up and hit me, please, please, I beg you. Increases magic attack by 70% when HP is at 30% or below. Gives you treasure and revenge. Magic attack is now 790, pretty insane. But is it worth that? All of that? I don't think it's worth it at all. All of that hard work just for that? Not worth it. Health screening machine. There will be a quick precision checkup for early signs of illness. Increases swap cooldown by 10% and crit rate by 4%. for every enemy under status effect, stacks up to 50% and 20% each. Gives you mana attack and strike. I don't recommend this at all, because if you don't have anything to give you status effects, this is completely useless. And this doesn't give you any status effects, so it's utterly useless. I don't like it at all. Nice's Heart. A magic gem found in place of the heart of the spirit of protected elemental lake. Taking damage freezes nearby enemies, cooldown 10 seconds at the end of freeze duration, and Ice Storm erupts, dealing magic damage. Heritage and absolute 0. Let's test it. Okay. I mean, that's pretty good. It does tons of damage, but the caveat is you have to take damage, so I don't think it's very worth it. I don't recommend stacking it. Leaves you vulnerable. Veteran Warrior's Gloves. A set of defensive equipment suitable for both sword and magic, but slightly better for magic. Does not seem that way. After using a skill, create an energy blast that deals physical damage. Masterpiece and courage, so it's pretty good. This is how it looks on enemies. Just use a skill and then dash. It does tons of damage, very repeatable. I would honestly say it's very worth it. It's pretty good. I would stack Mana Attack Booster, Initiate Cooldown, Initiate Countdown, 3, 2, 1, boosters on. Normal attacks and skills performed in midair increase attack speed by 5% for 3 seconds. Stacks up to 50%, so it's a 450% attack speed increase. Only if you keep attacking in the air. Gives you mana attack and soar. Honestly, I don't think it's very worth it, because the amount of attack speed it gives for the whole thing of needing to stay airborne is just not worth it. I don't think this is a very good item to stack at all. I highly dislike it. Hidden Dagger. The thinner your wrist, the easier it is to hide these daggers in your sleeves. When dashing, throws a dagger that deals physical damage. Increase crit rate by 10%, 100% crit rate with Hidden Blade and Chase. And the amount of damage these daggers do is actually so good. So I actually highly recommend this. This is just great. It's really OP. The best dash item to stack ever. Veteran Hunter's Boots. Wind magic is added of these boots, made of deer skin from the Forest of Harmony. The improved wind magic possesses untold power. When dashing, an arrow falls on 3 random enemies, dealing physical damage. Masterpiece and Chase, and this is what it looks like. Just destroys everything. Absolutely insane. I love it. It's so powerful. Highly recommend it. Ice Skill Spalders. I can't feel my shoulders. Increases dash attack damage by 30%. Dash attacks have 10% chance to inflict freeze. And yeah, the amount of dash damage it does is pretty insane. And the freeze is also crazy. Essentially a 90% chance to freeze. They freeze no matter what, so you can just keep dashing and keep damaging them. It's pretty strong. It's really OP actually. I like it a lot. Inner Flame. The burning drive buried deep within the subconscious. Swapping increases magic attack by 60% for 12 seconds and draws out inner flames that deal magic damage. So basically gives you a 540% increased magic attack, along with mutant and arson. This is what it looks like on enemies. Just absolutely destroys them, does tons of damage. I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. This is the exact same thing as the other item, Inner Malice. The spiteful heart hidden deep within the subconscious. Swapping brings out your inner malice, dealing physical damage and poisoning enemies, and increases physical attack by 60%, 540 in total, and gives you mutant and poisoning. So it's basically, that's just the physical version of the magic, the other one. It's pretty dang OP, and I kinda argue it's a little better than the other one, depending on what skill you're using. Invisible Knife. A blade with an invisible edge. They say it wounds the soul. Crit hits let you stab your enemy with the invisible knife for additional magic damage. It gives you Hidden Blade and Misfortune. Is this good? Yeah, I'd say it's pretty good. 24 damage each is pretty dang good. Obviously, you're not going to hit it every single time, but being able to do that 1/4 of the time is pretty good. Not the best, but it's okay. Next we have Gajamon Thorn. Gajamon's broken thorn can be turned into a deadly weapon when it's curled up into a ball. Normal attacks against enemies inflicted with wound deal additional 7 fixed damage and increase your attack speed and movement speed by 3% for 5 seconds. Gives you excessive bleed and heritage. So obviously, It's pretty good, but it's still not the best. Because triggering bleed in general is pretty hard, and just for an increase of 7 damage, not the best unless you're obviously using one of the best bleed skulls in the game, which is this guy, and even with this guy, it's still not the best. Jenny's Chain Sickle. Pleasure to see you for the first time, brother, but I'm afraid this is the end. Normal attacks performed in midair let you swing a chain sickle that deals physical damage. Gives you sore and misfortune. It's pretty consistent, does a lot of damage. I'd say it's pretty good. The only problem is you have to actually be in the air. So I'd say this is pretty good, I recommend it. Served. Kids these days have no respect. For every 15 seconds your next attack inflicts stun. Oh, it all triggers at once, so this is completely useless. If it triggered on its own, then it would be way stronger, but it all triggers on at the same time, so it's completely useless to stack. Basically worthless. Teacup, even in combat, a little relaxing isn't a bad thing, is it? Stiffen nearby enemies at the beginning concentration. At the end of concentration, crit rate is increased by 15% for 1 second. Gives you heirloom and antique. This just stuns enemies when you are about to concentrate, so it's not that bad, but it's also not really that good. Mage's Necklace. Studded with gemstones to help the weaver feel the flow of mana. When casting a skill, cast a burning orb. The burning orb hurls a fireball at the nearest enemy, dealing magic damage, gives you heirloom and mana cycle. Now this one is just utterly broken. That's it. That's literally it. It's just broken. There's nothing more to say. Magical Choker. A magical choker that activates when sensing danger nearby. Swapping fires 8 magical projectiles that deal magic damage. For every projectile hit, your critical rate increases by 2% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 16%, gives you mutant and strike. Is it good? Not really. Like it's pretty lackluster, the amount of damage it does. And it doesn't seem to really stack. Beat of Darkness. I told you should keep back when I transform. Swapping for the 3rd time stuns nearby enemies. Mutant and dizziness. Okay, it stuns them, but like it doesn't stack, so this weapon is stacking this is just completely useless because it doesn't stack. Manatech Gravity Generator. Do you call that control? Using a skill activates Manatech Gravity Generator, which deals physical damage to nearby enemies and temporarily suspends them in the air. Manatech and Courage. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of damage. Yeah, it definitely does stack, and it does massive amounts of damage. I highly recommend it. It's like the Mage's Necklace, but just physical. Wind Armor. Metal armor imbued with the power of wind from the Druid Gorge. Dashing within 0.4 seconds after the previous dash engulfs you in a cutting wind, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies. Gives you Fortress and Chase. That's what it looks like, just massive amounts of damage. Destroys everything as long as you run into it. Pretty OP. Here's Paladrons. One needs impressively broad shoulders to wear this armor. Every 20 seconds create a wall that lasts for 5 seconds. The wall nullifies damage received from the front. Fortress and Brawl. This is basically utterly useless to stack because it doesn't do anything but block projectiles, and yeah, it's just basically useless. I don't recommend stacking this at all. Mysterious Apparatus. An apparatus which bestows mysterious power. Consult your physician before you use if you're taking any medications. Using a skill increases attack speed by 20% for 3 seconds, 180% in total. Your normal attacks create a wave of mysterious force that deals magic damage. Create a mysterious force that deals physical damage. Heirloom and Rapidity. That does seem very strong. The fact that you do need to use a skill to activate it though is a little lame, but the amount of damage it does is actually crazy. I actually recommend this because this actually seems pretty dang good. Offensive Wheel. How is it created so that it never stops moving forward? Increases physical attack by 45%. That's an increase of 405 damage. When swapping after casting 4 skills, summon a wagon wheel that deals physical damage. Gives you antique and mana cycle. Sad thing about this is the wheel does not stack, so you only summon 1 wheel, so it's pretty useless to stack. I don't recommend it. Next we have the Prince's Box. This is a box. It holds whatever it is you desire. Increases physical attack and magic attack by 30%, so 270%, and increases max HP by 20%, 180%, and gives you random inscriptions. So is it good? It could be good, it could be bad. It's not really good because you can't consistently get what you need, so it's not very good. Rake of Fury. Why would anyone want to use this to butcher livestock? Increase attack speed by 55% per 5 seconds per kill. So that's a 495 attack speed increase. Gives you Hidden Blade and Execute. I'm not sure if this means like every 5 seconds it'll boost it even more. But if that is what it means, then that's pretty busted. But no, it does not seem like that's what it means. It just gives you a 495% attack speed. It just gives you a 495% attack speed upgrade. Not really that worth it. I don't recommend stacking this. Relatability generator. How is it all if you can feel it? That person's condition increases skill cooldown speed by 40%, 360% total. Stunning an enemy creates a wave that inflicts stun on other nearby enemies. Gives you mana attack and dizziness. So that's what that does. That does not seem very useful because the stun does not stack. And all it does is just give you a basic skill cooldown, so I don't recommend it at all. Grudgestone. This Grudgestone absorbs negative emotional energy. When it's full, it resonates mana. When defeating an enemy, there's a 30% chance to create an explosion that deals magic damage, and increases max HP by 30%. So it's basically just a 270% HP increase and a 100% chance to explode. Gives you Artifact and Execute. That's what the explosion looks like. Not really that impressive. So yeah, it's not really impressive at all. It's fine. Wouldn't really. Lunar Ring. A moon-patterned ring that resembles someone waiting for a certain somebody. Increases magic attack by 40%. I can't really show none of them, because it'll just evolve, so this just increases magic attack by 40%, so 360% in total. Because if I do get 2 of them, this is what happens. Turns into this, increases magic attack by 100%. So essentially, if you get a bunch of these, it'll increase magic attack up to 900%. And also, it'll do a giant shockwave every 50 seconds. And give you 2 artifacts, so it's really, really worth it. Same thing with Solar Sword. A sun-patterned sword that resembles someone longing for a certain somebody. Increased physical attack by 40%. If I combine the two, it becomes Dawn of the Crimson Sun. 2 suns in the crimson light of dawns that radiates through the ruins. Increased physical attack by 100%. Attacking an enemy unleashes a crimson light of dawn, which deals physical damage to nearby enemies. Cooldown 50 seconds. This one gives you 2 arms. And then if you mix the 2, it gives you Fulgent Dawn. Wait for the promised victory as dawn breaks, which gives you 80% in both of them, and gives you a giant shockwave again every 50 seconds. Gives you arms and artifact. Ceremonial Dagger. Dagger used by Carlian exorcists. Critical attacks increase magic attack by 55% for 4 seconds. Increase crit rate by 5%. Basically, crit rate is half the time, and it does a massive amount of damage for magic attacks, so it's pretty good. Also serves as a bludgeon in a pinch. Increases magic attack by 50% up to 450. Increases skill cooldown and speed of balanced skulls by 40%, so up to 360, and gives you artifact and wisdom, which buffs your magic even more. I highly recommend this one. This is one of the best magic rares. This is one of the best rares in general in the whole game, and I highly recommend taking it. It's actually so good. And the skill cooldown is also very impressive along with the damage. The Spear of Snipping. Sphere of magical snipping that has only one downside: it can't target the enemy it wants. Increases magic attack by 25%, 225% total, and crit damage by 100%, 100% crit chance, and swapping to a balanced skull fires several magical arrows that deal magic damage. Gives you duel and misfortune. This is what it looks like. Massive amounts of damage, huge amounts of damage, but it's just not accurate, and it's probably not the best thing to stack. Sphinx Eye, an eye believed to make its bearer fearless. Decreased trap damage by 75% and increases to 315 damage increase, and makes you pretty much invulnerable to traps. So I'd say it's very useless to stack this. So it's next we have Elementalist's Blessing, the last legacy of the late Rusta McClellan. Increases magic attack by 45% for every spirit you have. Gives you Fairytale and Heirloom. Gives you King Oberon, but it doesn't give you any magic attack at all because I don't have any spirits. So it is completely useless to stack. I do not recommend at all. Sure, you get King Oberon, but how much does that really matter when you get no damage? Vampire Fang. Elizabeth's Fang can't be destroyed by anything under the sun. Defeating 5 enemies restores 1 HP and causes a vampire sting to extend and inflict wound to nearby enemies, heritage, and excessive bleeding. So this is essentially when you kill an enemy, you will 100% heal. So that's pretty busted. Well, it's rather, if you kill 5 enemies, you'll heal a bunch. And the whole stake thing is actually super good, and does way more damage. As you can see, you heal by 9 HP every single time that happens. Spirit Sift. The Sift that once took care of the Druid George is forever trapped in Rustic Woman's necklace. The Wind Spirit follows you and uses wind magic to deal magic damage to enemies in front. Fairytale and Rapidity. This is just way better than the necklace. This is actually good. It's really good actually, and I highly recommend getting this. Just a free Oberon plus massive damage from these guys. Symbol of Toughness. The armor worn by a warrior who thought the best offense was a good defense. Taking hits while having an active HP barrier sends out a shockwave towards the attacker. Cooldown 1 second. The shockwave deals physical damage proportional to the HP of the barrier. Now this is actually pretty good. Really busted, but once you run out of, once you run out of shield, it's extremely useless. So I'd say this is not good at all. To stack on its own, maybe accompanied with a few other items, it would be phenomenal, but on its own, it's just useless. So I don't recommend. Thief Armor. Aerodynamic armor popular amongst assassins. Upon attacking with normal attacks, throws a ninja star that deals physical damage. On a critical attack, throws a giant star that deals physical damage. Cooldown 0.5 seconds. Gives you Hidden Blade and Misfortune. This is one of the more aesthetically pleasing items. It just does so much damage, and it's just so fun. I highly recommend it. Obviously, Rapid Sword of the Subconscious. I too cannot control myself anymore. I trust my body to the Rapid Sword. Deal physical damage to a random enemy every 13 seconds. Now this could be good, but it's just not good. Every 13 seconds, that's just too long for not that much damage. So, Pass Down Scabbard. A long-lasting scabbard said to have lived down even after its sword was lost. It is rumored that the scabbard itself discarded the sword. Restoring your HP creates a sword slash nearby for 10 seconds and deals physical damage. Okay, there's a health potion. This is pretty lackluster. It doesn't do very much damage, and you have to get a health orb to activate it, so it's just very, very bad. Great Sage's Time. What is life? One suddenly ponders the meaning of life. All anguish takes leave, and perhaps one understands the working of the universe. Increase physical attack by 30% for every skill on cooldown. When 4 skills are on cooldown, unleash a wave of Epiphany that deals physical damage. Cooldown 3 seconds. Okay. 3 skills are on cooldown, 1,164. Gotta get one more skill on cooldown and then it'll work. That's also the Wave of Epiphany, which does massive amounts of damage. Is this really worth it? I mean, to be honest, probably not. Actually, it is very worth it. It gives you 2,279 physical attack. That's actually really busted. This is a really OP item. Thorny Boots. Boots studded with sharp thorns at the bottom. Increases physical attack by 40% while in midair. Normal attacks performed in midair have a 15% chance to inflict a wound. So essentially a 360% physical attack and a 100% chance to inflict a wound when in the air. And is that good? Honestly, pretty good, but being in midair is just terrible, so I don't think it's very good at all, honestly. It's Thorny Paladrons. Such extraordinary pieces of armor are usually popular among mercenaries. Increases dashed attack damage by 80%. That's a 720% physical. That's a 720% attack increase. And dash attacks gain a 10% chance to inflict wounds, so basically 100% chance. Gives you Fortress and Explosive Bleeding. With a Fellowship, a forgotten doll that spent a lot of time with its sister when they were young. When swapping, increases attack speed by 10% and crit rate by 4% for 12 seconds, up to 50% and 20% respectively. Gives you Antique and Mutant. So at the very least, you'll get 36% crit rate and 90% attack speed. And at most, it gives you 90%. Gives you 180% crit rate and 450 attack speed, which is pretty crazy, but there's a huge caveat of needing to swap before the cooldown runs out, so it's good, but I wouldn't recommend it for swapping. Main Rapier. The special rapier of the Liana sisters, known for their swift swordsmanship. Increased attack speed by 20%, 180% altogether. Every third normal attack casts Golden Wound on the nearest enemy, dealing physical damage. Gives you Spoil and Rapidity. So I'd say this is actually pretty good. Like, genuinely very good. The amount of damage it does is massive, so I'd say it's good, but there are definitely ones that are way better out there, so it's like, if you... Now we have the Wood Statue of Horror, a wooden statue everyone holds dear. Those who saw its true form went insane. Increased skill cooldown speed by 120% and attack speed by 30%. Gives you 1,080 skill cooldown speed and 270 attack speed. But obviously taking damage nullifies the effect, so that gives you literally like an insane skill cooldown, almost instant. I'd highly recommend doing this if you have a skull that has a high cooldown speed. Yeah, this is quite literally pretty instant. It's pretty busted. This is really OP, highly recommend it. Witch's Brew. A tincture that supposedly pushes one's ability to the extreme when imbued. Swapping increases attack speed and movement speed by 120%. The effect dissipates over 5 seconds, so it gives you 1,080 attack speed and 1,080 movement speed, so this is going to be a little crazy. Yeah, this movement speed is kind of hilarious. Is it good? I'd say yeah, it's actually pretty good. I recommend it. It's kind of silly though. Now we have Rear Blast, a magic tool that uses every ounce of its user's mana for maximum effect. Successful item attacks increase physical attack by 90% for 3 seconds. Gives you mana tech and execute. This one is completely useless because this does not count as a item attack, so stacking this is just useless. It does literally nothing. Aftershocks. I shall not be thought so insignificant, for it is comparable to many a great earthquake. Stunning an enemy causes an aftershock that deals magic damage to nearby enemies. Cooldown of 1 second. Gives you brawl and dizziness. And yeah, it's pretty broken to be honest, but yeah. Yeah, it does massive amounts of damage whenever you stun anything. So I feel like it's definitely worth it. Because yeah, that's a lot of damage. Architect's Breastplate. Oh, you have plans? Using the skill grants a 10 HP barrier that lasts for 1 second. Taking damage increases physical attack by 60% for 2 seconds. Gives you Fortress and Courage. I would say this is actually really good, because it literally makes it so you cannot take damage if you use a skill, so it's just infinite health. So I highly recommend it. Pretty broken. Blood Drinking Sword. I want blood. Bleeding increases physical attack by 1%, stacks up to 50%, total of 450 attack, and reaching maximum limit for this effect increases crit rate by 20%. So if you get it up to what it's able to do, it'll increase your attack by 450 and give you a 100% crit chance, which is really, really OP. It gives arms and excessive bleeding, so I'd say it's pretty busted. Obviously you have to get it to that point to even be strong, but I'd say it's very worth it. Outer End's Gratitude. Blessings of Yggdrasil that contain that contain energies of the Forest of Harmony. Gain an HP barrier with 40 HP. Increase physical attack and magic attack by 40% while the barrier lasts. The item disappears along with the HP barrier. Gives you heritage and mana cycle. Gives you up to 360% barrier and 360% damage each. I don't recommend this at all, because once that barrier is gone, the item is gone too, so there's a lot better items that do exactly what it does, but better, so I just think this is horrible. Contaminated Core. This is it. As long as we have this, the goddess will. When entering a map, increases damage received by 8% and physical attack by 30% for every 15 seconds, up to 40% and 150% respectively. At the base of it, you'll get a 72% increased damage taken, which is absolutely terrible, and at max you'll get 360% damage take, which is absolutely unbearable. And you'll also get 1,350% damage increase, which is not worth it at all.
To a total of 20.66 damage taken and 1,510 physical attack. So it's horrendously scary, and I don't recommend getting it at all, because you will be one shot.
Now we have the Bone of Courage. Judging by its weight, I doubt this bone would float in water. Every 5 seconds your physical attacks amplify physical damage by 20% for 1 second. Based on the number of power skulls owned, the amount of damage amplified increases to 40 and 80%. So essentially this is just a 720% damage increase, but it's temporary, and it only gives you courage and bone. I mean, it does massive amounts of damage, but I don't really recommend it, because there's just better items that give you way more damage constantly, so it's good, but it's not the best. Bone of Mana. How rich you must be to use things like this. When casting a skill, creates a mana storm that wraps around itself, dealing magic damage. Based on the number of balance type skulls owned, the damage and AoE of the mana storm increases by 20% to 60%. So it's a 540% magic attack, gives you bone and wisdom. I feel like this one is way better than the other one, simply because there's no cooldown on it. The cooldown is your skills, so as long as you have very fast skills, the item is OP. I highly recommend it. Bone of Swiftness. This doesn't really give me wings, but still it makes me feel as if I can fly. Normal attacks against enemies deal additional damage based on higher attack power. Additional damage is increased by 20% and 60% based on the number of speed skulls. Gives you bone and rapidity. Now this one is just really, really good. It's better than the courage, it's better than the physical one, and I'd say it might even be better than the magic one. It's just really, really good. Like, it's so strong. It scales with your attack, so you could even power this up and make it do even more damage, so I highly recommend this one. This is the best bone there is. Well, of those three, I mean. I don't know how to say that word, but yeah. It's unique, it's quite simple to use, slash and burn. Your attacks have a 10% chance to inflict burn. Inflicting burn on a burning enemy deals additional magic damage. gives you Hidden Blade and Arson. Essentially a 90% chance to burn. And yeah, clearly it's super strong, like genuinely so strong. I actually recommend this a lot because it's a very high chance to even burn them, and then just dealing damage, hitting them again just does so much damage. I highly recommend it. Archbishop's Scriptures. How are they being punished? I wonder who's being blasphemous. Using a skill calls down divine punishment, dealing magic damage, cooldown of 30 seconds. Each hit amplifies magic damage by 10% for 10 seconds, so this could have upwards of 450 increased magic damage. Pretty good, gives you relic and wisdom, so... Oh, that is not what I expected it to be at all. It's very, very strong, but the cooldown is way too long. It's really not worth it, so I don't recommend this. A suit of armor worn by someone who would cut through the skies to bring victory. They say he was immobile while airborne. Damage taken while in midair is reduced by 35%, and skill cooldown speed is increased by 50. It's a 315% increase in reduction and a 450% cooldown speed increase. Gives Fortress and Soar. About this, gives you the lowest damage taken possible in the whole game. So stacking this is just the most OP thing you can have, because you basically take no damage at all. Well, you have to be in the air, obviously, but which is a bit of an issue, little problem. But as long as you're in the air, you take 1 damage, and it's literally great. Yeah, 1 damage, no matter what. 1 damage. It's pretty OP. Steel Mace. This gigantic mace is believed to be the heaviest weapon in Carleon. Stunning an enemy deals an additional physical damage and increases physical attack by 40% for 10 seconds, so 360%. Gives you arms and dizziness. Oh. So that does some damage, but it's pretty lame, to be quite honest. It doesn't do enough damage, and it's just not the best. Baton. My turn will be the final nail in the coffin. Swapping increases magic attack by 70% and movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds, 450% speed and 640% magic attack. Defeating an enemy while this effect is active resets its cooldown. So execute and mutant. So as long as you keep attacking, you're gonna have insane damage. Magic damage at least. But is it that strong? Not really. It's really not that strong. It's pretty average. I wouldn't recommend it, it's just not that good. Water Spirit Undyne. The Undyne that once guarded Elemental Lake is forever trapped in his ring. Water Spirit Undyne follows you and launches ice shards to deal magic damage and freeze a random nearby enemy every 25 seconds. Fairy Tale and Absolute Zero. Good thing about this is, well, it gives you Obrion, and it's just very OP. Obrion is OP, and having a bunch of ice spirits is just hilarious. Only issue is their cooldown is very, very long, so that's just bad. But other than that, this is OP. Some of the other spirits have a little shorter cooldown, so it's better. Next we have the Fire Spirit Salamander. The salamander that once managed the Black Rock Volcano is forever trapped in the ring. Fire Spirit Salamander follows you and uses fire magic to deal magic damage and burn nearby enemies every 20 seconds. Gives you Fairy Tale and Arson. This is the same thing as the Ice Spirit, except for the fact that this thing is cooldown is way shorter by 5 seconds, so this automatically makes it better than the Water Spirit. 100%. Highly recommend, because obviously Obrion, and it's just so... Thief's Blacksteel Dagger. Made out of light absorbent black steel, the dagger is hardly visible in the dark. Each attack increases crit rate by 2% for 2 seconds. This effect can be stacked 20 times, gives you Hidden Blade and Rapidity. Essentially, this is just going to give you a 100% crit chance. That's basically it. That's it. That's all it does. I don't recommend stacking it at all, because it doesn't do anything different. It's just going to give you crit. 100% crit. That's not really the best thing in the world. I mean, it's good, but it's just nothing special. Authentic Stone of Plague. The statue of a plague god carved by one of its followers in the past. It precisely captures the god's image. Poisoning an enemy increases physical attack by 25% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 125% for every 5 seconds. Your next attack inflicts poison. It gives you masterpiece and poisoning, so let's see what happens. At minimum, it's going to give you 355% attack, and at maximum, it's going to give you 2,250% attack, depending on how often you poison the enemy. You can stack this up surprisingly easily. You just have to get the poison cooldown, and then every single time the poison's about to go on cooldown, it gives you 1,285%. Do I recommend this? Yes, I highly recommend it. It's actually very broken. Stone Mask. I forfeit my humanity. I will transcend it. This is a JoJo's reference, by the way. Depending on the higher rarity of your two currently held skills, your gold gain increases by 20%, 30%, 40%, and 50%. It's 180% money increase, and at max it's 450%. So I would highly recommend this. This is one of the best things to get because how valuable gold is, so I highly recommend it. Now we have this stigma leg, a prosthetic leg that once person who would label others until he lost a leg. His old habit never died, so he lived very busily for the rest of his days. Leave a mark on the first enemy you collide with when dashing. Dashing or using a skill deals an additional magic damage to the marked enemy. Cooldown 2 seconds. You cannot mark a second target until the first marked enemy remains on someone. Duel and chase, okay. So yeah, just pretty good actually. Yeah, it just does loads of damage. Very good for single targets. I highly recommend, but for multiple targets this is a bit not the best, but still it's powerful. And you don't even have to be near them for it to activate, so you can literally just go like this and just run and it'll kill them. Don't look down and hold it tight as we descend. Increases physical attack and magic attack by 70% while in the air. Increases damage by 640% in total while in the air, and gives you soar and relic. Well, it's pretty good. I don't recommend it because you have to be in the air the whole time, and there's just better items that give more damage instead. Silent Sword, the ultimate assassin's blade that allows one to approach without sound. Even the body makes no sound when falling. Amplifies damage dealt from behind by 25%. So max of 225% amplified damage. This is amplified, by the way, not added on, so it's multiplied by 225%. Gives Hidden Blade and Duel, so this might be really good. I just have to actually hit him from behind. Okay, that did 100 damage to that guy. Okay, this thing doesn't have a behind, so yeah, that does quite a lot of damage. Not as much as I'd like it to be quite honest, but it's okay. I don't really recommend it because it's not the best thing in the world. Absolute Mithril Gear, a suit of armor forged from the strongest of metals which hardens each time it's struck. Due to an added layers, it now possesses an immeasurable value. Dash attacks increase physical attack by 8% for 6 seconds, stacks up to 80%. That's an increase of 720 with all of them. Reaching the maximum limit for this effect decreases damage taken by 25%, that's 225% for each, and increases physical attack again by another 40%, so that's up to 1080%. Gives you chase and masterpiece. This is what it looks like. Come on. Yeah, now I have 0.08 damage taken, which is phenomenal, and up to 1,310 damage. So I highly recommend stacking this. It's pretty broken. I basically don't take any damage anymore, and stacking this is actually super easy, so I highly recommend it. It's OP. Adventurers, why do they keep collecting these? Might as well do the same. Metal Box. When an adventurer is defeated, increases physical attack by 20%. Stacks up to 140%. Essentially, with 9 of these, you can get up to 1,260 physical attack, which is pretty good. It gives you treasure and courage. I would recommend it, but it's kind of hard to get going, so in the very beginning you're going to be extremely weak, so it's not the best. Fighter, a helm worn by the champion of Carlian fighting tournament. Increases physical attack and magic attack by 25%, so an increase of 225 with all of them, It's further increased by 55% when you're near 2 or fewer enemies. Increase of 720% maximum. Gives you execute and duel, pretty good. I'd say this is especially good against bosses. Like, it's actually pretty good. Not the most powerful thing in the world, but there's stronger things, but it's okay. It's pretty good. Master Brawler, a helm worn by a warrior who is strong enough to fight 100 men. Increases physical attack and magic attack by 25%, so 225. This is further increased by 55% when you're near 4 or more enemies, so again, 720. Increased attack damage, gives you brawl and execute. This is basically the exact opposite of the previous item, which buffed you when you were near few enemies, and this buffs you when you're near many enemies, so a little bit of a difference, but I feel like this one is better for crowds and worse for bosses. However, it does give you brawl, which is actually pretty strong, so this one might be a little better. A chest containing a scroll of pyromancy. It's too hot to open. Chest of flames. Attacking a burning enemy creates a pillar of flame that deals magic damage to nearby enemies. Cooldown 2 seconds. Artifact on arson. Okay. Oh wow, that created a giant blast of damage. Yeah, that's the pillar. It does massive damage. I recommend if you have a fire skull. If not, it's medium. Mana gauntlets. A set of magical tools that allows the wearer to draw mana from his body to his hands. Normal attacks increase magic attack by 3% for 2 seconds, stacks up to 60%. Reaching the maximum limit lets your normal attacks deal additional magic damage, gives you artifact and rapidity, and the magic attack stacks up to 540%. So we'll see how pretty good that is. Okay. Keep attacking, and that should be 20 when it reaches maximum. Yeah, that's pretty broken. It does a lot of damage. Completely destroys, and is super good, especially if you have a skull that does magic damage. Priest staff. Omnipotent Leona, please protect me with your eternal light. Slowly restore HP when current HP is at 30% or less. Gives you relic and antique. Oh wow, this basically makes you invulnerable. Unless you like take a huge chunk of damage, that is. Oh, but there is a cooldown. But the cooldown isn't even that much. So this is actually really OP. I highly recommend stacking it. Basically makes you invulnerable. Unless you take damage too quickly, obviously. But Mana Eater. A Jamandar made out of a metal that stores mana. When using a skill, use Mana Eater to stab an enemy in front of you by performing a normal attack, dealing physical damage. Okay, let's see how this works. I use the skill, and now just... yeah, that's pretty OP actually. Obviously you need to have skills that are low on cooldown, but essentially it's pretty dang OP. Does massive amounts of damage. I highly recommend it. It's really... Mini pocket watch. Don't you think time is really flying by today? Increase skill cooldown speed by 70%, which is 640%, so pretty much instant. When swapping, increases concentration speed by 100% for 12 seconds. Gives you antique and mutant. I wouldn't say it's instant, but it's pretty quick, and then the concentration speed is just crazy. It's basically instantaneous, and it lasts for a long time, so if you have a concentration build going, then I highly recommend it. Tool awarded to Carlane's most powerful mage. Increased skill cooldown speed by 120% for every 10 seconds. For 10 seconds every time 6 skills are used. So this is a 1080 skill cooldown speed increase if you have all of them active. Gives you heirloom and wisdom. Once you activate the 6 times, this is basically instantaneous. Yeah, and it just keeps resetting, so it's really, really strong. Really OP. I highly recommend getting this. It's just broken. Yeah, 1240% skill cooldown speed. That's insane. This is OP. Next we have the Stone of Air, a legendary stone that absorbs the mana of powerful enemies and transfers it to Master. When a boss is defeated, increase magic attack by 30%, stacks up to 150%. This is essentially just a 1350% magic attack increase. It's okay, but it's not the best. Gives heirloom and wisdom. I recommend stacking. It's decent. Hunter's wooden longbow. The smaller crossbows can't compete with this gigantic longbow's destructive power. Increase crit damage by 35%. 315% crit damage, pretty good. Gives misfortune and strike. With a 25% crit rate and a 4.85% crit damage. This is actually insane. The amount of crit this thing does is phenomenal. Genuinely phenomenal, but it's not the best. There's definitely better ones out there for crit damage, but it's decent. If you have a good crit build going, I recommend stacking 9 of these. Though it's hard to get that 25% going, and it's not actually that much damage, so it's mediocre. Stamp. Why does it keep stamping twice? Why does it keep stamping twice? Increase physical attack and magic attack by 40%, 360 in total. Increase max HP by 30%, 270 in total. And it gains 2 random inscriptions of the same kind. Now this is pretty useless to stack, because it'll just give you 18 of 1 inscription and the bowman's bow. I'm not scared, just very cautious. Cowardly sharpshooter, iron snail. Amplifies projectile damage done by 40% when there are no enemies around you. So 360% damage amplification, pretty good. Gives misfortune and strike, so it gives a chance to critical strike. So pretty good. This is what it looks like. Just insane damage. Oh, that one's a little special. But insane damage nonetheless. If you have a projectile build going or a ranged skull, this is just phenomenal. Super OP. Highly recommend it. Obviously to swing terrible blade shards with normal attacks for 4 seconds. Dealing physical damage, which has a 10% chance to inflict bleed. It gives you excessive bleeding and masterpiece. Is this good? We'll see. That's really good actually, and once you get that to trigger, you can continuously trigger it because it's basically a 90% chance to bleed once you trigger it. So yeah, once you trigger bleeding, it's just as long as you keep attacking, you can constantly activate it. It's really OP. I highly recommend stacking. Cretan Bull. An imitation of a Cretan bull known for its ferocity. Just looking at it makes me feel stronger. After using a power skull skill, dash to transform into a bull and deal physical damage with the increased dash distance. Gives you treasure and chase. Whoa, what the heck? That's a pretty big distance right there. Gives you, yep. How much damage does it do though? Might not actually be that good because it might just straight up ignore some things. Yeah, it does seem to straight up ignore some things. That's not good. But the distance is interesting and it's actually pretty fun, so I like that. Holy footsteps. It followed his footsteps all the way here. I followed his footsteps all the way here. Dashing increases skill cooldown speed by 5% for 4 seconds. Stacks up to 50%, which is 450% stack. 450% skill cooldown, and reaching the maximum limit of this effect increases magic attack by 540%. Gives you relic and chase. There we go. 700 magic attack with a bunch of skill cooldown. It's pretty good, but the fact that you have to consistently dash to keep up the skill cooldown is not the best, but it's okay. It does the job. Manatech Staff, a staff that siphons mana from its surroundings. Using a skill increases magic attack by 10% for 8 seconds. Stacks up to 60%, so it's an increase of 540% in total. Reaching the maximum limit for this effect increases crit rate by 20%, essentially 100% if you stack all 9 of them. Gives you Manatech and Misfortune. There we go, fully stacked, 700 magic attack and crit rate. So this is pretty good actually, and the fact that the Manatech is actually abundant, it actually makes a big difference, because Manatech seems to trigger multiple times, so it's actually pretty worth it. I highly recommend it. Manatech Cudgel. That crystal which possesses a destructive power but is but it's used just like any other crucials. Normal attacks turn into critical hits for 3 seconds after 3 skills are used. Man attack adds strike. This is completely useless to stack simply because all it does is just gives you critical strikes, so that's useless because it doesn't stack, so it's pretty bad. Tech Circulator. A mana tech, a miraculous product that infinitely goes on from 1. Using skills, decrease all skill cooldown by 1 second every 4 seconds. Mana tech, add mana cycle. So every so often, it just lets you use skills multiple times, but there are better items that do this way better, so I don't really recommend this one over those. There's Holy Sword. This explains why he charges at me every time he sees me. Dashing increases physical attack by 100% for 2 seconds. It gives you arms and chase, so basically it's just a 900% physical attack increase. Really not the best because you have to actually dash to activate it, and there are things out there that give you that much attack damage without needing to dash, so it's not the best. Art of Estic. Guided by pain, receiving the grace of light. Increases max HP by 150. HP continuously drains when it is at 50% or above. So, in theory, this is supposed to give you 1,350 health, which it does, but in practice, you only get to keep 749 of it at all times. So it's pretty bad, to be quite honest, and it has nothing that boosts your damage, so it's pretty much worthless. The owner of this numerous hand would grow more powerful with size. Increases physical attack by 4% per 10 max HP. Stacks up to 120% HP. Stacks up to 120%. In theory, this is supposed to give you 1,080 damage and gives you anti-kin duel, but the thing is, stacking this only gives you 18 stacks of it, which does not give you enough. It barely gives you anything at all, but in order to get the maximum effect, you would need 30. To get the maximum effect of this, you'd need 300 health. I don't have that, so stacking these isn't really the best option. Gunpowder Sword. At the time of purchase, they told me it would go boom boom when I swing it around. Adventurer Calbian. Critical hits cause an explosion that deals physical damage, gives you arms and brawl. With a 10% crit rate, this might not be the best, because it's literally just 10%. Yeah. Explosive Arrow. Do not point this object at people or animals. Keep out of reach of children. Your projectiles explode on hit and deal physical damage. Cooldown 2 seconds. Gives misfortune and brawl. Yeah, this is just, if you're doing a projectile build, this is phenomenal and very, very worth it. It does massive damage. Dark Priest Robe, a robe containing the mana of 30 men who have turned their backs against the light. Grants 30 HP barrier that lasts 30 seconds when HP is at below 30. That's a lot of 30s. Gives Relic add Revenge. This is in 270 HP barrier. A lot. But the fact is, it only lasts for 30 seconds and is literally only activated when you're at 30 HP or below. So it's pretty worthless. I think this is an absolutely horrible item because you're gonna die anyways. Yeah, it's just bad. Glowing Voltrian. Refined Strength, created by Strong Will. Concentrating grants 10 HP barrier, and taking damage to the barrier increases crit rate by 50% for 2 seconds. Cooldown of 1 second. Antique and Strike. So basically, if you're concentrating, you're not going to take any damage, and you'll do a critical hit when it's over. Is it the best? Not really. It's pretty damn horrible. It's very circumstantial and just not good. Overwitch's Staff. The Crazy Witch would summon multiple hailstorms in a single day. Increase magic attack by 40% for every frozen enemy, up to 120%. So it's a 1080% magic increase, but problem is you have to actually freeze them first, which is a hassle, and they have to be nearby, and it has to be 3 of them. So it's good, but it's just too hard to activate, so I wouldn't recommend it. Frost Giant's Leather. The leather of a giant who once inhabited cold regions. The cold would provide him peace of mind. Using a skill grants you the Frost Giant's protection for 10 seconds. Cooldown 60 seconds. While active, you will receive 30% less damage and receive a 5 HP barrier that lasts for 40 seconds every time you freeze an enemy. Stacks up to 20. Use the skill, and now I've been granted the protection. I have 0.03% damage taken, which is phenomenal. Basically take no damage at all, so that's pretty OP, but the cooldown is a whole minute, so it's just bad. Once you've done this and once the cooldown's over, you're basically just dead. So I don't recommend Demonicon, a book containing the noble code of the law of demons. Decrease squab cooldown by 5% by 0.5 seconds for each kill. Increases magic attack by 55%. It gives you an increase of 495 magic attack, and the swap cooldown is pretty good, so I'd say it's pretty good. Not the best, but it's fine. It gives you artifact and antique. Right, circlet. A powerful magical circlet imbued with the strength of the fallen. Successful quintessence attacks increase magic attack by 90% for 8 seconds. That's a whole 810% magic attack for 8 seconds. Heritage and heirloom is what you get for it. This is not really what I'd recommend, because while quintessences have a large amounts of cooldown, and this thing only activates for 8 seconds, so it's like an 8-second magic attack increase that you're gonna have to wait a long time to get back. So I don't recommend this at all. It's very, very weak. Lots of drop. Forbidden Sword. A sword being contained by a powerful force. A slight tremble can be felt. Increase physical attack by 15%. So 135% physical attack increase. And when 300 enemies are killed, this item turns into the evil sword Kyrian. So Arb's rapidity is what you get, and this is pretty mediocre, but once it evolves, that's when it really shines. So I do recommend getting this because it's genuinely broken once it evolves. Fatal Sword. Still kicking? I will make sure you are dead. Poisoning the enemy creates a toxic orb. After 3 seconds, the orb shoots out spikes that deal physical damage and have 30% chance to poison targets. So this is pretty crazy. I'm hoping it's actually pretty strong. That's a lot of orbs. Jeez. You do have to wait for the cooldown of the poison to kick in, but once that's over, this thing does massive amounts of damage, so the amount of damage it does is pretty crazy, but you have to kind of wait for it, so it's good, but it's not the best. Now we have the prophecies. This is the prophecy of evil wrath. When your ego awakens, face your enemies with the power of true wrath. Attack speed increases by 90% for 6 seconds upon altering. That's an 810% attack speed increase, and you get Sin and Mutant. Yeah, this is pretty quick. Not the best though, it's very weak. There's better items that can do this. Prophecies of the Evil Sloth. Irrelevant fool, did you think diligence would make you any different? Become careless and indifferent, it won't change its thing. Gain 20 shield upon entering the map, up to 20 fortress and sin. So this gives you a max of 180 after entering a map. It's good, it won't make you take any damage, but there's way better items out there. There's literally an item that is 100% better than this, so yeah. When you trust yourself and charge at enemies, you will gain immeasurable speed. Pride. Move speed increases by 150 for 2 seconds after dodging. That's a 1350% move speed increase and gives you Chase and Sin. Well, this is pretty crazy. Insane movement speed, but I don't know why you would even need that, so it's just bad, but it's pretty fun to play with, I must say. Now we have Prophecies of Evil Lust. Why do you hesitate? Never stop showing off your skills. Each time you defeat an enemy with your skills, you will go beyond your limits. Cooldowns of all skills decreases by 1 second upon defeating an enemy with a skill. Gives you Mana Cycle and Sin. So basically whenever you kill an enemy, you get 9 seconds of your skills reduced, which is pretty good. For some skills that'll be instantaneous, but for others it won't be, so getting that much skill cooldown isn't really that good, because not all skills can one-shot everything, so I wouldn't recommend getting this. Prophecies of Evil Greed. Possess more, thirst more, bank in even more wealth. Gold accusation increases by 50% for 5 seconds upon defeating an enemy. Now this is well worth getting. That's a 450% increase in gold gain and gives you treasure and sin. So I'd say this is very worth taking. Prophecies of Evil, Gluttony. They are simply a means to an end. They are there to serve your purpose. Everyone will become your flesh and blood. Recover 1 HP upon defeating 3 enemies. Essentially, with 9 of these, it becomes recover 1 HP. Essentially, it becomes recover 3 HP when defeating 1 enemy. And it gives you execute and sin, so this is actually really broken. But you get no damage increase, so you're not going to be able to kill any bosses with this, but it'll heal you up really good. Prophecies of Evil, Envy. Find your enemy and get revenge. When you find a new enemy, your body will gain powerful strength. Physical attack and magic attack increase by 100% for 20 seconds upon entering the map. Gives you 1000, essentially gives you 900 damage. Gives you sin and rapidity. So essentially you're just going to be able to kill everything in 20 seconds, but after that 20 seconds is over, you're extremely weak, so against normal maps this is incredibly good. This is OP, but when against bosses it's essentially completely useless, because once that time is over, you're screwed. So I wouldn't recommend to start with Approaching Death, a legendary dagger that chases and eliminates the target. Not really. Amplifies damage to poison enemies by 30%, so this is 30 times 9, 270% amplified damage increase. This is what it looks like on enemies. Yeah, it just poisons them, and the poison is also amplified, so that poison just one-shots all the enemies. Is it worth stacking? I'd say not really. It kind of leaves you vulnerable. Next up we have Crown of Thorns. Bloody Crown of Thorns. Legendary Wreath, restored colors. The successor's blood will be preserved forever. Critical hits conjure spikes that deal additional physical damage to nearby enemies. Each subsequent critical hit performed within 5 seconds after the last amplifies physical damage of the spikes by 10%. And you get a 25% crit rate, so you get Misfortune and Masterpiece. What it looks like on enemies. If I can get a critical... Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty busted. Is it good? It seems that it is pretty good, yeah. It doesn't one-shot all the enemies, which I was kind of hoping it would, but I think it's pretty okay. Next we have Cursed Living Embers. A vessel that holds cursed flames that cannot be quenched. Embers explode at the end of burn duration, dealing magic damage. It gives you Heirloom and Arson. Pretty nice. There we go. Pretty big explosions. Is it worth it? I don't think so at all, because you're left very vulnerable when you're waiting for the burn duration to go down, so it's not very good. Seed. Nature itself that laid the foundation of the forest. Increase physical attack and magic attack by 40%, and swapping summons a world tree. Cooldown 60 seconds. The world tree lasts 15 seconds, and standing near it increases physical attack and magic attack by 60%, and reduces damage taken by 20%. So 520 physical attack and 520 magic attack it would be if I wasn't using the Grim Reaper. But then when you swap, this happens. And you go up to 1060 physical attack and magic attack, and your damage taken goes all the way down to 0.13, which is pretty crazy. It's strong, but I wouldn't recommend using it simply because how long it takes to actually get to this point, and the fact that it's a minute cooldown, just too many drawbacks. O cursed one, you will wander the afterlife for eternity, for you cannot die. Taking a fatal blow restores 40 HP and destroys the voodoo doll. And it also gives you artifact and revenge. Nothing big. This is... Okay, keep going. Well, that's basically what it looks like. Gave me a revive. Activated again. Okay, now we have the Veiled Mask. An inscrutable mask that grants immense power in exchange for eyes. Decrease crit rate by 30% and increase crit damage by 70%. Now this is one of those ones that are just horrible. Genuinely bad. You should never ever stack this. because you're never gonna get a crit, and so that's 8 times damage. That's pretty crazy, but you're never gonna crit, so it actively brings you down. So never, just never do it. It's horrible. We have Chimera's Poison Fangs. The foul-smelling fang of a Chimera is still frothing. Poisoned enemies at 20% HP or below die immediately, 10% for adventurers or bosses. Now I don't know if this stacks, but if it does stack, this is crazy, obviously, but if it doesn't stack, it's pretty useless. It does give poison and heritage, which is cool, I guess. Let me try it again with this guy. Yeah, this stack, it doesn't work. I don't recommend stacking that at all. It's pretty useless. Now we have the ring. 1 ring to rule them all. Well, I have 9, so not really. Increase physical attack and magic attack by 40%, so 360%. Increase attack speed by 30%, 270%. Increase crit rate by 90%. That's awesome. Increase skill cooldown speed by 450%, and increase max HP by 450. So, yeah, pretty busted stats. And yeah, my health is 600. My physical attack and magic attack is 250, attack speed is 370, skill cooldown is 610, swap cooldown is 161. It's basically OP. Now this is what it looks like on enemies. Yeah, that's pretty busted. About basically every single attack is a critical hit, no matter what, and it does massive damage. Is it worth stacking? Absolutely. This item is like a jack of all trades, and having more of those is just amazing. Sif's wings, torn wings of a fairy who is believed to have secluded herself from the rest of the world, increases mid-air dash distance and cooldown speed by 50%. 10 mid-air dashes release blades of wind that deal magic damage. Gives you heritage and soar, pretty good. It does seem like the cooldown is not really there. I mean, it's there, but it's very slight. The distance, though, is not there at all. Looks like on enemies. Oh wow, okay, that's pretty dang busted. Would I recommend stacking this? Absolutely. Is it actually, it's good for, it's clearly good for enemies. Is it good for bosses? Most likely. Next up we've got the Raven Monarch Feather. The principles and material densities of 2 different worlds create a vacuum when they collide. When swapping creates a giant vortex that pulls enemies toward its center and deals magic damage. Heritage and mutant. Okay. Well, I'm not really sure if it stacks, but it's doing its job, I guess. Oh, it stacks, alright. Yeah, that basically just one-shot everything. That was a lot of damage. So it triggers 9 times. Is it worth it? I actually think it's pretty worth it, because it doesn't have a cooldown. It just as soon as you swap, it triggers. So I feel like that's actually really worth it. One of the best swap items in the game, just multiplied. So I feel like that's pretty worth it. This one's a little weird because the more you take, the more legendaries drop. So I have all of this, and this gives me 1,240 damage and 0.55 damage taken, which is cool, I guess. But it also drops basically a lot of legendaries. So you can just mix and match whatever you want. So stacking this is kind of useful for that one reason only, is the fact that you can get as many legendaries as you want. So I'd say it's pretty worth stacking. Got the Nether Mana Suppressor. Do not use magic in this area, even though the suppressor won't last much longer. Increases magic attack by 60%, and for every 10% increase in skill cooldown speed, additionally increase magic attack by 6%. At the moment I only have 36% skill cooldown. It can stack up to 60, so it's not the full power, but it's pretty good. Already it's 1,860. I'm pretty sure that could stack up to a lot more. But yeah, I'd say that's pretty okay with stacking. It's just pure damage, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't one-shot, so it's not the... If you had a choice between stacking a few other legendaries, I would not recommend this one, but it's fine. It's completely fine. It's not like it's actually bad, so yeah. Next up, we have the Multidimensional Prism, a Manatech crystal which harnesses the power of the dimensions by dispersing the light. Swapping summons a multi-dimensional prism, 30-second cooldown, sprays lasers nearby and explodes physical damage, dealing physical damage and leaving 6 mana tech components. Just a giant shower of lasers, and it just explodes into just a bunch of tiny mana things. Is this worth stacking? Kind of. I mean, it's very, very strong. I'm sure it would do tons of damage to bosses, but the only problem is the cooldown, and with that, when you're not on cooldown, when you're on cooldown, you're basically powerless. And next up, we have the Miracle Grail. It's incredible. Look at that red water keep filling up. Amplify damage by 400% the third time bleed is applied. So think about that for a second. It gives you relic and bleed, but this is 4,000. It's 400%, which 400% times 9 is 8,600. 3,600% damage. One more time. There we go. I couldn't read that, but that was a lot of damage. I'm sure this thing would have one-shot bosses. Is it good? I don't think it's the best in the world, but yeah, that did 1,639 damage. It wouldn't one-shot bosses, but it would tank them like crazy. Now we have Mane of the Beast. In the pitch black darkness, a flowing crimson mane of fear. Enemies who dash into receive a mark. Attacks made against marked enemies turn into a critical hit, dealing damage. The mark disappears after hit. The best, but I guess the damage it does, like that right there, is pretty good, so it's not bad actually, but the damage is not the best, I'd say. Yeah, would I recommend actually? Yeah, would it be able to defeat a whole run with this? Not too sure about that. Next up we have Light Spirit Lou. Light Spirit who remain loyal to the foolish elementalist Rustamicon to the end. Light Spirit Lou follows you and calls down a barrage of light to a random enemy every 18 seconds, dealing magic attack. Gives you Fairy Tale and Wisdom, and this is what it looks like on enemies. Just a ray of light. Pretty damn broken. Also gives you Oberon, obviously, because that's what Oberon does. It doesn't actually seem to do that much damage, because it struggled to defeat that plate armor, but maybe effects like that are just not good against plate armor. But regardless, this is just beautiful. It just kills everything. Would I recommend? Yeah. Next up we have Infinite Bone. This is the perfect container for the valuable scrolls from the witch. Skills create a 30% chance of resetting until cooldown. Resetting their cooldown when used. Gives you bone and mana cycle. I used Gambler for this just to showcase the craziness of it. Basically, it just lets you use your skills constantly. Would I recommend this? Hell yeah, this is just busted. Next up we have Hope Slasher. Why does everyone believe that they will survive? Increase physical attack by 60% based on the physical damage inflicted on enemies. Additionally, increases physical attack up to 60%. So each of these are 120%. At the moment I have 894, and let's see how well it does on enemies. Yeah, basically just one-shots a lot of enemies. I have to keep doing damage to max it out. Hold up. There it is. Max stacks gives you up to 2,236 damage. Pretty damn crazy. Would I recommend this? Oh yeah. Next up we have Armor of Fear. Fear is the root of all superstitions and one of the roots of cruelty. Create a shockwave at the end of stun duration, dealing fixed damage. The shockwave's damage is proportional to the damage dealt to the stunned enemy. Gives you Fortress and Dizziness. I don't really know why it's Fortress, but you know. But yeah, stun. I'd say that's not bad. It's not good though. Evil Sword Kyrian. A cursed sword that absorbs life force, cannot be wielded by those who bleed. Increases physical attack by 60% when attacking with a normal, and dash attacks, performs a powerful slash, dealing physical damage, gives you arms and rapidity. And I'm up to 1,005. This is what it does to this crazy boss. Just annihilates the boss. No competition. Obviously, I highly recommend stacking that because I just destroyed her. Now we have the Glacier Breaker. I hate ice. Break them all. Amplifies damage to frozen enemies by 30%. Damaging a frozen enemy deals additional magic damage. Gives you absolute 0 and execute. Is this good? We'll see. This is what it looks like on enemies. Basically one-shots the enemy if it's frozen, which is pretty busted. Obviously. Getting enemies to be frozen can be a little difficult, but if you have the Ice Skull, obviously not. So I would say it's pretty good if you have the Ice Skull. Now we have Doomsday. There is no such thing as salvation. When the day comes, everyone will be destroyed. Create an apocalypse every 44 seconds. Apocalypse reduces all skill to cooldown by 5 seconds and triggers an explosion after 11 seconds, dealing fixed damage. The explosion damage is proportional to the physical damage dealt to enemies between the apocalypse and the explosion. And this is what it looks like on enemies. Let's just deal some quick damage here. It basically does make your skills pretty invincible, so you have infinite skill cooldown, which is busted obviously, so yeah, that's pretty broken. I'd say I'd recommend it, except the whole 50 seconds. After the whole 44 seconds thing is kind of annoying, but it's actually pretty busted, so I actually recommend this one. Now we have Pain and Despair. The two glimmering swords, they sparkled as if in warning that they would butcher you. Increases attack speed by 50%. Every normal attack, skill, or dash increases attack speed by 2% and movement speed by 1%. When you max all this out, it becomes 250% attack speed, and it basically just looks like Little Bone is wobbling his head. He's rocking out. But yeah, this is pretty busted attack speed. Yeah, pretty broken. Would I recommend it? Actually, yeah, this is actually really cool. I think it's very good. Obviously it starts off not the best, but then it stacks up really quickly and it just becomes phenomenal. Now we have the Dawn of the Argent Moon. 2 moons and the Argent Light amid the chaos. Increases magic attack by 100%, pretty busted. Attacking an enemy unleashes an Argent Light of Dawn, which deals damage to nearby enemies. Cooldown of 50 seconds. Gives 18 artifact, that's pretty busted. And gives 1,105 magic attack. This is what it looks like on enemies. Just massive damage. Do I recommend it? Hell yeah. If you're doing a magic build, this is broken. I love it. We have Dark Spirit Shade. The foolish elementalist Rosto Clemon went insane when he realized after ruining the world that he was tricked by the first stage he'd sealed. Invokes an Assault of Darkness against a random enemy every 18 seconds, dealing magic damage. Gives you Fairy Tail and Brawl, as well as Obrion. Is this worth it? Hell yeah. Though I do recommend getting the Light Spirit instead of this one. This one's good and all, but the Light Spirit also gives you Wisdom, which is obviously way better for this build than Brawl. So, is it busted? Hell yeah, I highly recommend it. This is Dawn of the Crimson Sun. 2 suns and the crimson light of dawn that radiates through the ruins. It's basically the same thing as the moon item stacked, but instead of magic attack, it's physical attack. Increases physical attack up to 100%. 1,105 damage, yep. And the whole giant crimson light thing also gives you 18 arms, pretty good. And boom. Hopefully hit some enemies. That was busted. Cooldown of 5% is obviously very broken. But regardless, this thing is pretty busted. I highly recommend it. Now we have Fluke and Dawn. Wait for the promised victory as dawn breaks. This is just a combination of both the items. Increases physical attack and magic attack by 80%. And unleashes the light of dawn, dealing damage to nearby enemies based on the higher attack power. And he gives you arms and artifact. But the damage is both the same, so I'm not really sure which one is going to happen. But we'll see what happens. Well, I didn't exactly get to see what happened, but damn, that was crazy. So this would be one of the best items I recommend, because it gives you both artifact and arms, and it doesn't really matter what kind of skull you're going for. It works for every build, so I just recommend this really a lot, because it's just great adventurous items. First one up, the Chosen Warrior's Armor. With 9 of these, get 20 shields upon entering a map and 40 upon entering a boss map, so this will give me 9 times that, so This gives me 180 each map, and stacks up to 900. So this is pretty busted. Is it worth stacking? I mean, stacking up to 9 items makes you practically invincible, so I guess kind of. Next up we have the Chosen Thief's Twin Swords, which upon dealing the first attack to an enemy, attack speed increases by 100% and the enemy slows down for 5 seconds. Also gives you full inscriptions for Chase and Hidden Blade, which is pretty cool. And this is what it looks like on enemies, just literally just the fastest attack speed you've ever seen. Just so fast you can't even see him swing the blade. It's pretty phenomenal. And it is quite literally 1,000 attack speed. Is this worth stacking? With the right skull, it would be very much so. But with this one, not really. I mean, this being fast helps. And it does seem like it completely staggers the enemies, like they can't move at all. My personal favorite, the Mage's Badge, which gives you 3 fireballs that spin around the player, dealing magic damage. When you use a skill, each fireball explodes and deals magic damage and rotates faster. The reason I love this so much is because it's literally just a ring of fire. Literally nothing can get near you. Nothing at all. Everything just dies. Then we have the Chosen Hunter's Arrow, which increases crit rate by 25% and increases your attack by 2% for every crit rate you have, up to 400% increase. So it's basically just a bunch of crit rate and damage upgrade. So it stacks up to 3,760 damage, which is, it's a lot of damage by the way. And a crit rate up to 235%. This does guarantee that every single attack is a critical hit, so yeah, every single attack literally goes around and one-shots every. The Hero's Circlet, which makes you invincible for 7 seconds when you reach 15% or less HP. And while you are invincible, you gain more damage. And your movement speed is also increased. And when it ends, you just recover that HP. So I'm hoping that they don't all trigger at once, because that kind of... oh, they do. Oh. Well, it just seems to lag it out. Yeah, I don't think this is very worth stacking at all. Now finally, we have the Cleric's Bible, which recover 1 HP upon defeating 10 enemies. Upon recovering HP, gain wings that last for 10 seconds. Physical attack and magic attack increase by 80% and movement speed increases by 50%. A random enemy is punished every 2 seconds. Punishment inflicts damage based on the higher attack power between physical and magic attack. And it does give you Execute and Relic, which is cool, I guess. Okay, that's very quick. And I would say it's actually pretty worth stacking. Yeah, that damage increase is definitely there. So is the movement speed increase. I don't think you could win with this. It's just not very viable. Especially against bosses, so... yeah, I wouldn't recommend getting it. But if you want to just murder all the enemies on the screen, sure, go. First one up is that 13th bone. Physical attack and magic attack increased by 110% for each omen inscription in position. With 9 of these, you get 9,070% damage. This is what this looks like. Just everything is just demolished. One shot everything. Second up, we got Symbol of Death. When a critical hit lands, an arrow of death appears around the enemy. Upon reaching 5 arrows of death, all arrows are fired at the enemy. Arrows of death deal damage according to the higher attack power. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And it literally just one-shots them. Boom. All the arrows just fire down and kill them instantly. Third up is Sword of Chaos. When using your basic attack, ominous thorns rise from the ground around the head, inflicting physical damage. Here's what it looks like on enemies. Just boom. Massive damage. And it does indeed stack pretty well. Okay, now we have the Soul Killer. In a basic attack, swing the Soul Killer to deal damage according to the higher attack power between physical and magic. This is what it looks like on enemies. Just a massive damage. Is this worth stacking? I think so. Shard of Darkness. This is one of the unique ones. Physical attack and magic attack increased by 70%. But as you can see, they turn into Unknown Darkness instead. Physical attack and magic attack increased by 250%. Upon receiving fatal damage, restore 1 HP to survive death, and it refreshes after 50 enemies are dead. And it also gives 100% damage increase up to 400% for every death. So in total, this is a 650% damage increase for each of them. So I'd say this might be one of the best ones to get. And now we have the Scepter of Whispers. Ominous thorns attack a nearby enemy at random every 6 seconds, inflicting magic damage. This is how it works. Literally just everything around you just dies. You don't have to do anything. Next up is the Revelation of the Red Star. Create a red star zone upon attacking an enemy. Cooldown of 10 seconds. Red star draws in enemies and disappears after 2 seconds. When it disappears, it deals damage based on the higher attack power and deals 50% more damage per enemies inside the zone. This is what it looks like. Just an ominous thing. And yeah, it does massive amounts of damage. Next up we got the Mad Harpoon. Leave a mark upon attacking an enemy to deal 45% more damage to enemies. With the mark can be left on up to one enemy. Marks cannot be left on any other enemies until the enemy with the mark dies. This one's a little odd because the mark it's talking about is completely invisible, and it just activates whenever you attack some. Irresistible Suggestion. Physical attack increases by 90%. Okay, so this is just an 810% damage increase, and if you die, that just doubled. Idol of the Forgotten. When alternating, the omen hangs over all the surrounding area, dealing damage according to the higher attack power. The energy of bad omens is considered an alternating skill. Basically, it's just a giant wave of just fire, and it does stack, as you can see. Okay, this is the Howling Egg. It's just basically a 810% damage increase, which doubles when you lose your revive, so it's just, instead of physical, it's for magical. The Desire Omen. It's just an elemental that casts an Omen Nightmare on all surrounding enemies to deal damage over time. Damage is amplified as an elemental is amplified. Damage dealt to enemies as an elemental is amplified, so this just boosts every single one. Special thing about this is it creates a Dark Obrion. And this is just Obrion but buffed. And in general, the spirits are just very OP. Deal a basic attack with 1 second of dodging an enemy attack. Then move to the nearest enemy and ambush them, dealing damage based on the higher attack power between physical attack and magic attack. Damage dealt to the ambushed enemies amplified by 50% for 3 seconds. Decadent Sword. Used to create a corruption zone that lasts 10 seconds. Cooldown 20 seconds. All attacks on enemies within the corruption zone land as critical hits. This one is basically useless to stack because whenever you attack, it turns on at once. And since all it does is makes it so all your attacks are critical hits, it does basically nothing. Another interesting one. Physical attack increases by 40% for each masterpiece. So when you combine all of them, it becomes this. Cup of Faith. Cup of Fate. Physical attack increases by 60% for each masterpiece inscription. Possession. Physical attack increases by 50% each time an item with the masterpiece inscription is destroyed. And I have 5020 physical attack. Pretty good. Point of Extinction. Enables the player to enter the ominous and silent disaster states. The state changes each time the skill is used. Damage dealt to enemies while in ominous state is amplified by 40%. Skill cooldown speed while in disaster state increases by 130%. So basically it just multiplies that all by 9 times. So basically you can just do this very quickly. Branches of Destruction. Branches of Destruction grow to deal damage to enemies. Once the branches of destruction are fully grown, use the skill to have them reach out and deal damage to nearby enemies based on their higher attack power. Branches of Destruction deal 50% more damage to enemies with 30% HP or less, and adventurers and bosses with 20% or less. This one is pretty useless. It just takes too long and it's just a vulnerability. Not worth it. Anyways, that was the video. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.